Testing. All right. Give me a second. Okay, so this is totally an example of, first of all, good morning slash afternoon, wherever you are. This is totally an example of the power of just kind of get this camera angle right. That's a little better. Um, the power of like document, don't create. Okay, so I had about a 2 hour session. Okay, let me say this. The purpose of me doing this quick live stream is that I want you to walk away with something that's beyond the ChatGPT and Claude AI hype, right? Which is, I want you to take the software principle of DRY. DRY stands for don't repeat yourself, and use it for your prompts. So let me give you an example what I mean. The challenge with, let's say, ChatGPT, whether you're using the free version or the upgraded version, I have the upgraded version you're on the phone, is that most people are not reusing their prompts. Well, prompts are basically natural language code. Let me say that again. Your prompts in Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini or DeepSeek or whatever LLM you're using are natural language code. Now, I would say probably 75-80% of people who are using these LLMs are not reusing their code, right? And so I want to invite you to use a prompt that at the end of every conversation, right? The word that you want to use is verbatim, right? So I had a long conversation, the topic of which I can discuss later, that ended up with 21 prompts, right? And the last prompt says, in a numbered list, I want you to write out every question that I asked you so I can review it verbatim. Let me say that again. One hack that you can use at the end of every conversation is that you can say, write out in a numbered list. It's very important to use the word numbered list, because you're giving a command that will you're giving a natural language command to basically label the data, right? One piece of data per line, and verbatim is telling the LLM that you don't want it to summarize. It's very. I only figured out how to use this particular wording, especially the term verbatim, because in the past I would ask it to summarize my prompts, and it would give me I would ask to give me the prompts, and it would summarize it, and it didn't get the full text of what I needed. And then when I went to go reuse those prompts, then you don't get the same results. So the benefit of having, again, the prompt number 21 says, in a numbered list, I want you to write out every question that I asked you, and you can change that to say during this conversation so I can review it verbatim. When you have something listed verbatim, what you can do is copy and paste that into another LLM, all right, or into Airtable database or Google Sheet or Google Doc, and you can start reusing it, all right? Now, eventually, if you want to get fancy, you can connect um, uh, ChatGPT to Airtable, and then you can add the um, automatically add your prompts to an Airtable database. And then when you want to reuse them, right, then you start basically building a library of natural language code, right? Let me say that again. When you save your prompts at the end of a conversation, and you either cut and paste that conversation someplace that's easy to access, right? And then you give it, let's say, a hashtag so that you know how you use that conversation to get certain results. You're deploying the DRY principle from software. DRY stands for don't repeat yourself. This is so important. Now, the reason why you want that particular prompt that I gave you, right, in a numbered list, let's break this down, because I don't think people are really getting the fact, although chances are if you're watching me, you geek out a little bit more than others. People are not getting the understanding that when you speak to ChatGPT using natural language, you are the definition of computer code is just right giving written instructions to a computer, right? The definition of programming code, giving written instructions to a computer. Well, guess what? When you were speaking or writing out, you're just giving natural language instructions. So you like any good coder or computer programmer, right? You want to take your code and the first iteration of it might not be the best, or you want to rework it. And so what I'm saying is that by saving your code or your prompts at the end of conversations, you can start to reuse them. Okay, you can get better at giving the machines instructions. 9 out of 10 people are not looking at their prompts and saying, okay, how do I make this prompt better in the future for a similar conversation, or just sharing it, right? So as an example, I um um to kind of be totally transparent, a while ago I had a conversation with ChatGPT and I came up with a quote. I'm sorry, I came up with a prompt that basically said, assume that this conversation was a book. I want you to name each prompt or the big idea that was produced from each prompt as a chapter in a book, right? So you can almost literally you're structure again, you're structuring your data. It's like you almost are turning the conversation into a book. Well, the reason why you wanted something like a book is that it makes it easier to read, right? You can look at the table and you can ask it to structure a conversation like the table of contents in a book. And you know, if you're reading any book for a well, I'm not talking about this because this is Daniel Steele, a romance novel, but whatever. This is fiction, nonfiction book. You often refer back to particular chapters, right? And so if you have your conversations listed in the equivalent of chapters, so you can go back and say, oh, okay, I have a here it was like a 21 prompt sequence. Okay, let me go back to prompt 10 because that's a prompt that I can reuse either to continue this conversation or another conversation, right? So the takeaway is at the end of, I'm telling you, if you use this one little hack, right? At the end of all your conversations that are extensive, like if you're doing it right, you are giving the LLM, ChatGPT or Claude, um, not these long sequences of instructions, but one at a time, right? And then you're after every prompt, you're asking it to confirm that it understands. And then at the end of your entire prompt, you want to ask it to list all of the prompts verbatim. That's super important in the conversation. Okay. And so then, you know, at the end of every conversation, you say, okay, what was I talking about and what was the end result? You can go back and review all the questions in the prompt. And more importantly, now you have a piece of code that is reusable. Now, if you really want to get fancy, basically when you take data from one place and use another place, that's for the most part the definition of synthetic data, right? So you literally can cut and paste either the entire sequence of prompts or the output of a conversation from one LLM to the other. And then it's basically like the LLMs are talking to each other. Let that sink in, right? You take the output from one LLM and feed it to the other. Is synthetic data because you didn't come up with the NLG output, which is the generative AI output. NLG just stands for natural language generation. And so you're feeding it to the other LLMs, right? So that's like hack upon hack. But the 80/20 of all of this is at the end of long conversations, ask it in a numbered list, super important. I want you to write out every question or prompt that I ask you in this conversation verbatim. And you have that at the end of your conversations. And then you can use that um, multiple times. It leverages it's a good software habit that you're building up. DROI stands for don't repeat yourself. And eventually you will have a library of prompts, right, that you can share with other people, right? That you can reuse in-house. and heck, maybe at some point you can monetize it. So this it would have been 850 11 years is a saying in the African American community, which means a long time. It would have been a long time into the future for me to think about sitting down when I'm not busy running a business and try to come up with a fancy video for you. But instead, I stopped and I said, let me just hit this little recording button on YouTube Live and document, don't create. This literally is a conversation that ended earlier this morning. It started around 4 a.m. last night or whatever. And I said, oh my goodness, this whole big idea that I want to share with you. The big idea is that when you're using your natural language prompts in your LLMs, you're basically it's the verbal equivalent of your any coding activity. And one of the biggest principles in coding is what? Never or do not repeat yourself. So save your prompts at the end of every conversation because it makes it easier to find. Trying to scroll up and copy and paste each question at especially if it's a long conversation, it ain't happening. But if you save the prompts, the first step is just save it at the end of every conversation. Eventually, you can get super fancy with connecting the ChatGPT API to, let's say, your favorite database tool. I really like Airtable because it has nice interfaces, but you could probably also connect it to Google Sheets um, or Microsoft Excel, and now you are cooking with gas, as they say in the South. All right, this is Shola. Take care and take action. Have a wonderful day. And oh, I want to say, I woke up so pleased this morning. You, even though I know I'm doing this for the purposes of documenting, and I know that it'll be used for training, um, as well as like archive building. Earlier this morning, had somebody, I'm not sure if it's a gent or um, a dame, a woman. Not that it matters, and they are both different. Okay, let me not get into politics. Women are women, men are men. Shut up. Okay. So the thing is that somebody came by and left a comment, and I wanted to shout them out. Two people. The time for war. Thank you. This is the advantage of having a small channel. Thank you for uh, connecting. And someone says the other guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Uh, like when you have time's going to come when there are going to be hundreds of comments, and I may be limited in responding. But now that it's just a little intimate, I just want to say thank you so much. And yeah, for stopping by. I welcome comments and constructive criticisms, as long as you're not talking about my nail polish, because I get super sensitive about that. I'm just joking. Okay. Last thing I want to say, super general, is that I've been vibing off of Glorilla and Lotto's new song, the was it Confession? Um, yeah, no. What's the I forget the name of the song. Oh my god. Anyway, I don't want to play it because I'll get in trouble. But I've heard this song at least 20 times, and yeah, it just get me hyped. I don't even want to play it because, like I said, oh, Procedure, giving homage to one of my favorite movies of all time, that reveals both strength and vulnerability of the ladies in the movie, Set It Off. I love that movie. I've been listening to it, vibe it. Check it out if you can. Also, one little final lifestyle thing is that if you haven't checked out, wherever you are, if you haven't checked out Georgian cuisine, the country, not the continent, give it a shot. Oh my God, the it's just fire. All right, take good care. Bye bye.